Good morning, everyone. My name is Todd Cochran, and welcome to Saturday Morning Tech. We are getting an early start here in Honolulu with the time change. I am now 6 hours away from the East Coast, so it's right high noon in Boston. Where Paul Thurrott's checking in this morning with us. Paul, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Well, good afternoon, really.
Well,
I'm
that's
good.
true. Yeah, you're actually officially into the afternoon, but Rob, I know that you're still in the morning here, so good morning to you as well.
Well, good morning. It's great to be here.
And let's see if I can push the right buttons here. There we go. Of course, Rob's checking in from Seattle. And how's things? Are you guys warming up out there, Rob, or is it still staying wet?
Well, I think this is the only part of the country that's actually still in winter. I think Paul's already plunging into the summertime now, I think.
Well, it's
It's going to be, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say it's going to be almost 80 degrees this week.
That's
Global warming is working out really well for Boston.
Well, of course, for those of you that don't know, Paul is at windsupersite.com. That's where you can find him when you're out and about. And of course, Rob's over there with the. I guess officially now you're with the Xbox team, right? Is that the
Yes.
official alignment now, Rob?
Yeah, so it's been official for a while now.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit Windows today. We're going to talk a little bit Apple. We're going to talk all kinds of good stuff. But my wife, as soon as the iPad announcement came out, she was like, she's on iPad 1, and she's immediately telling me, "You're going to get me the new iPad, right?" And I'm like, and my wife never makes demands on techie stuff, so I said, "Of course, I'll order you one." Good excuse to spend some money, and so she FedEx arrived yesterday afternoon, and um, she had never went through a transition of an Apple
Yeah.
device before. So, she did the unboxing and was looking at it. And of course, she's kind of like, what do I do now? And so I just turned it on and I walked her through the steps. And it took about maybe 2 or 3 minutes to get through to the point where she had to put in her Apple ID. And I said, okay, put in your iCloud ID and, your password. And she put it in. I said, okay, just says restore. And she kind of looks at me kind of funny and pushes the button. And within 5 minutes, she's like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. It's all my contacts, everything.
Right.
So the question is, Apple has made it very easy for us to convert and upgrade our devices. What's going to happen when Windows 8 comes out? Is the transition going to be as seamless? Are we going to be able to save our default settings in Vista or Windows 7 or whatever we're in? What do you guys?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm not sure that I have an entire answer to that. Do you have an answer for that?
I have a multi-part answer. I would say that Microsoft is setting up what they're calling now a Microsoft account or a Microsoft ID to work similarly to what Apple has with iCloud. And that from Windows 8 going forward, that stuff will work very well, PC to PC and so forth. What they have now in Windows 8, or well, what they will also have in Windows 8, I guess, for people coming forward from Windows Vista, or Windows 7, or even Windows XP, is the ability to do various levels of migration directly through setup. So if you're familiar with installing Windows in the past, you basically blow away the computer, install Windows, and then you're kind of back to square one. And you could use utilities that used to be separate that you would have to know about, like Windows Easy Transfer to move stuff over. But with Windows 8, they have a new web-based installer that integrates that technology right into install. And so depending on which version of the OS you're coming from, you can choose. You can choose to bring everything, including all of your applications, your settings, your documents, and data. You can choose to bring nothing. It's your choice. And it's all integrated into that. So it's actually a pretty good experience.
I always find whenever I upgrade a machine, it's always kind of good to go with just a clean install. It seems like the machines run faster for about the first year until you get it loaded up full of crap. But
that's true, by the way. Not to go on and on about Windows 8, but one of the weird things I've discovered having installed and reinstalled it here for my own testing purposes is that for the first time maybe ever, I actually have much better results with an upgrade than I do with a clean install. And I think the reason is that when you, after you install the OS and you go look in Device Manager, a clean install doesn't pick up everything driver-wise, whereas when you upgrade, it does. And there's, for maybe the first time ever, it might be advantageous to actually upgrade instead of doing a clean install.
well, that's interesting because
Yeah.
it's true. But You would think during the action, that's true because it's so many different devices and so forth. Yeah, I could see where that would be advantageous. I've got it. I installed it on a test machine here and been playing around with it. Not so sure that I'm a big fan of the new, the big change on the menuing system. And I guess that's a holdover. It's so you get to a certain age, and I don't want to call myself out here of getting to that point, but sometimes it's hard to teach old dogs new tricks, and I don't know. I'm trying to. What's been your reaction to the new menu system?
Me? I mean, for me, it's a bonanza because nobody understands it, and it gives me a lot to write about. And anytime there's a controversy like this with a Microsoft product, it's good news for Paul. But I mean, from a user perspective, absolutely, it's confusing. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There are very small things I think Microsoft could change to make this more accessible to people that are familiar with Windows, and they show no indication of being interested in doing that. So it's absolutely a big controversy, and I think a lot of people feel like they're dragging us kicking and screaming to some tablet future that we may not want.
Rob, are you guys running any test builds over there? Are you guys, you getting the opportunity to play with it at all?
Yeah, I've got it loaded on a laptop that I'm using right now, and I think it is a fairly significant departure from the Windows 7 kind of experience, and I think a lot of people are just going to have to learn something new here. I think that's really the bottom line to this. I think it's a great operating system. It's terrific for Slate type of devices, and I think it can work very, very well on a regular laptop. But it is a very dramatic shift in kind of use processes that a user is going to have to go through to actually use Windows 8 on a daily basis, and it's going to cause some frustration for a lot of people. But I think once we kind of migrate into this kind of new Windows world here, I think it'll be, down the line, it's definitely going to be a lot better, I think.
I've got a family that is, at this point, really kind of operating system agnostic. I grew up primarily on Windows machines, and then started using, Macs later, and I still probably do 90% or maybe 80% of my stuff on an actual Windows computer. And obviously, when it comes to the mobile stuff, to the tablet and to the phone, I'm pretty much an Apple guy. And my kids are kind of this this weird mix. I got one kid with an Android. I've got one with the first gen iPhone that was a hand me down, and my wife is obviously on the Mac side, and then it's the same way with the inside here with like one does homework on a Mac, one does homework on a PC. So it's kind of weird. From a cost perspective, it probably isn't smart the way I'm doing it, but I guess that's the way we are today. I used to laugh, that the wars would always go on about Mac versus PC. I think we moved beyond that because I think people are finally realized that computer's a computer, and it's just whatever flavor you want to basically be connected with. And also, a lot of times, some folks are kind of locked in. I'm lucky. I've got the resources to kind of use both machines as I see fit. But I think for the average family who has one or maybe two computers, they're locked into a software upgrade path. Don't you think that's what keeps people locked in? Or do we see more people changing now?
I think more people are using a variety of device types and thus platform or OS types too. I mean, and actually, this hasn't been discussed enough, I think. That fact, I think, is going to make Windows 8 more acceptable in some ways because we're already used to using different things. I think there was an assumption without any real testing in the past that you had to make everything the same to keep people moving along, that if it was familiar enough, they would have an easy jump to make. But people move from Windows to the Mac very easily. And that tells me, and also to the devices, iOS devices like the iPhone and the iPad, that suggests to me that people could make this move to Windows 8 very easily as well. In fact, I would argue that Windows 8 is less of a jump from Windows 7 than going to the Mac would be. And people do that fairly regularly. So why not bring it along and have that desktop in the background with the ability to run those old apps? That's just a benefit. So, I mean, a lot of this is controversial now because the people who discuss it now are by nature very technical people, and they have very strong opinions. But I think we might be surprised by the reception that this gets with the general public, 6 or 9 months down the road or whatever it is.
And what's interesting is I have, a pretty broad audience I do this show on the weekends and then do my regular show twice a week, Monday and Thursday. And I've gotten very little feedback to this point when I've talked about this topic in depth. And it is kind of interesting that people are, I think people are in a sit, wait and see type of mode at this point. And then of course, those of us that want to play, we're playing with the early candidate release or whatever they want to call it, consumer release, and having a lot of fun with it. But time will tell on how this moves forward. And I think I've got a couple more topics later in the show that are Windows related that we'll get into. But I want to shift gears here for a second. There's big news yesterday talking about this guy by the last name of Daisy, and This American Life, of course, pulling stories that he in episodes that he was on with This American Life about the Apple factory stuff. This is pretty remarkable, and I think this guy's probably set himself up from a big. I can't imagine Apple sitting still on this and not suing this guy. But here you guy that's fabricated a bunch of pieces of his story, and he was probably largely responsible for the public getting initially in a big uproar about supposed and alleged abuses in Apple factories in China.
Well, yeah, I think that the side issue, though, is that everything he's described has happened, if not in the specific instances he claims to have witnessed, right?
Right.
I mean, it's not like he fabricated the situation in China and that it is, in fact, like, the Wonderland of Oz or something over there. I mean, it is, in fact, as dire as he describes. It's just that, as certainly happened in the past with people who've written memoirs and so forth, where they've invented specifics to tell a story. And so it's a tricky situation. It's something, like Michael Moore probably falls into this category sometimes where you have a pretty good point to make, but then you ruin it by exaggerating or, telling very specific stories that aren't true.
Now, I don't listen to very much NPR, and it's not that I don't like NPR. It's just that largely I don't have enough time in the day to listen to their content. But, they're going to dedicate an entire episode to, this is, you think about that, they're going to spend an hour dissecting this story. I do you think it's appropriate or for a whole hour? Well, or was it a way to get people to tune in and listen? I just think it's pretty remarkable. They're going to dedicate a whole hour to this.
Yeah, I think
I'm sorry,
it was explain, what happened and, all of the details. It actually aired last night.
It did.
But the whole thing with Mike Daisey is he actually did a very similar thing to the Amazon company back in the early 2000s. He had a stage play about the whole culture of Amazon and kind of went through the process, the same thing that he did for, against Apple here, he did against the Amazon company. A lot of people don't remember that far back, but he was actually a guest on my old show and talking about that whole Amazon thing. And he created this stage show. And I mean, it's very much the same thing that he did to Amazon back in the day. And he created almost like a story basically. And it's part, it is part fiction, part fact. And I think that's the thing that's come out now, that he's actually, he kind of blurs the line between facts and fiction. He kind of exaggerates things. At the same time, he's telling, first party accounts, but sometimes the fabrications go along with the dramatization part. And I think that's where people misunderstood what he was trying to say. And I think he kind of misrepresented himself a little bit as being kind of like a journalist here when he's really not. I mean, he's an entertainer is what he is.
An entertainer, yeah.
Well, isn't all news entertainment anymore? You watch the antics that are on most national TV shows when it comes to national news, and there's not a lot of serious. They try to be, but there's just there's a lot of hype, and the same thing goes with a lot of the talking heads. It's a lot of show and exaggeration, and so I think that people take a lot of liberal license across the board when it comes to stories like these. And I don't know if he's any different than, someone that would be a national talk host or someone that's, running one of these hour-long television shows that maybe aren't necessarily a specific news show, but is someone sitting there talking to a camera for an hour. So,
but that's that defense is the same defense that say Apple might use if they ever really spoke publicly about it,
true.
about the conditions in China, which is it's okay for us to do it because everyone's doing it.
Right.
I wish that we would hold such people to a higher standard, and I think that's the issue. It's not okay in my mind that this guy's an entertainer unless it's very clearly marked as entertainment.
That's true. He's not like somebody from HBO that's getting on and having actually comedy hour either. So he's that's true. Well, big news out of the Valley this past week, of course, was that the Milk crew, Kevin Rose, Danny Burka, Chris Hutchinson, Joshua Lane, are all going to Google. And I read this story yesterday, and I just sat here and I scratched my head for a long time. Now, obviously Kevin Rose is very accomplished. He did a lot of great things with Dig, and still doing. Dig still cruising around, but. What is Google here so desperate to get their Google Plus? Is it why are they going to Google? I don't fully get it, and maybe they're going to adapt a no holds barred on Google Plus, and they're going to come in and hopefully Kevin can get that turned around. But I just think this is odd.
Well, I think all the
Rob, how long have you been at Microsoft?
About 4 years.
Oh, okay. So I don't know if you recall this, but back in the late 90s, or let's say late 90s, Microsoft was going to turn MSN into an entertainment portal. They were going to become a content creator. They have all these TV studios on the Microsoft campus still that were a result of those days. I look at this like that. This is Kevin Rose's content, isn't he? I mean, isn't he? This is like them saying we want to be a destination.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's behind this. I think that they picked up some engineers here, and it's not uncommon for these big tech companies to snap up startups and capture all of their talent, and Kevin Rose has been a rock star kind of in the tech space for a long time, building Dig and I mean, who knows what Kevin is actually going to do at Google? I think that's the question that I haven't seen an answer to. It's going to be interesting to see if he, just like Paul just said, it's going to be interesting to see if he's going to be somehow associated with the YouTube side or the TV effort or something like that on the entertainment side, or if he's going to be purely in there to try and kind of work with startups and try and do some acquisitions and things like that. It's going to be interesting to see where he fits into the company.
Yeah, it's to me, it'll definitely be interesting seeing where they fit in. The other three guys, maybe they were, that was part of the deal. But I would imagine the big fish in the matter was probably Kevin. I just the other two guys, if they came, and I don't know these guys' backgrounds. I don't know if they're programmers or what. But it's interesting, and they didn't pick everyone up at Milk. They only picked up this core group of four. So, but definitely Kevin didn't have as good a success with with their first app rollout, and I guess the investors got some money, and I don't know how much. The rumor on the street was like 15 million or something. I wish I could. That's one thing you will say. Being a personality is worth the money these days, and
not to me it isn't, but I wish I wish it was. I wish someone would throw some small pittance at me, to buy me with other people.
I keep laughing because I've been working Raw Voice now since 2005, and we're doing these amazing numbers, have these amazing folks that are very talented, and done some amazing things. I keep thinking to myself, well, when's my phone going to ring? It's been pretty crazy. It really, really has. And interesting move. And I think it's. I saw this last year at NAB. when we were at AB and we're talking about over the top TV and talking about our channels and different devices, we were a lot of artists were coming up, but more what we saw more last year was companies looking for talent and looking for content. And I get an email at least once a week from not only companies here in the United States, but companies offshore saying, hey, we need content. We know that you've got, around 11,000 content creators. We want you to, license us your content because we need to fill a specific category. I got a company that called me from Brazil, and they were just looking strictly for travel shows and stuff to fill out their IPTV network. So I think the gatekeepers of content are, especially audio and video content, are going to become more in demand as the digital space grows for the online stuff, especially when people are putting set-top boxes like Roku and Boxee in their houses, and hopefully someday Apple TV, if they ever get up their butts and allow us to write apps to that. But I think it's there's going to be a big drain on people getting sucked up for talent. So maybe you're right, Paul. Maybe that's why they picked him up. So it'd be interesting to watch. He definitely didn't give a hint.
No, but Rob and I had a side conversation yesterday, and it's a conversation we've had in the past about podcasting in general and how this is perhaps augurs the future of entertainment in many ways. And you can look at things like if you folks are sports fans, and when you watch a football or basketball game or whatever today, you listen to whoever the broadcasters are in your area, or if it's a national game on the national stage. But I think the future of that stuff is going to be local guys who are essentially podcasters that are allowed to broadcast their coverage of a game over that, and that people will be able to choose, and that some of those people will become famous and rich. And that the type of thing that you folks are doing, and that I'm doing to sort of a small scale, is in some ways, I think, the future of this, and that the people will vote. But of course, we need a stage to stand on first, and whether it's the Xbox or the Apple TV or whatever. I mean, at some point, given the chance to stand side by side with the NBCs of the world, I think some of the little guys are going to win big, really big. And actually, YouTube is, of course, it was one of those stages as well. And I do think that that's what this is about. I think this is a step in that direction.
I've talked to top tier YouTube guys, and I've talked to top tier. I talk to top tier podcast folks on a regular basis, and there's definitely a weird divide there. And what I find from the YouTube guys that are top the game, the ones that are making 6-figure checks from YouTube, is they could care two hoots about really podcasting in general. Because YouTube's taking care of everything. All they got to do is worry about focusing on making content. I think that's a big win. And then, when what we're doing is we're working with individual content creators and then helping them monetize through advertising and so forth. And for us, it's a lot of work. And I think that if a Microsoft gets in the game, puts a little skin in the game with Xbox, Rob, hint. I think you guys. You guys are
Rob is one man standing against a tsunami.
That's true. I understand completely. But if
I just want to make sure we're not laying the blame at Rob's feet.
Please don't knock me over in the process here.
Yeah. I think I hear water coming.
I'm well aware of the challenges Rob faces, but I think what we're trying to do too on our end is we're trying to make it easier for companies like Microsoft to say, okay, they've these guys that are creating this content out there that we're going to pick and choose who we want. We've got some hooks now into the content where, there can be some backfeeding of advertising and that type of stuff that'll make the stockholders happy when, they put new media on the Xbox. I can only pray that for that day to happen. But, I think that, Paul, I obviously you've been talking with Rob. It's exciting time, but at the same time, it's frustrating that it seems like it's moving so slow, but yet it's moving so fast. That's it.
Yeah, I think if you were to transport a person from the 1950s to today, and just focus on the TV or video, I guess, aspect of it, they would be blown away by the sheer amount of choice that we have and the avenues by which just regular people can broadcast.
Right.
That's amazing.
Well, you look at where we're at just in the past 10 years. You think back of,
Yep.
10 years ago,
Yep.
multi-camera setups like this that I have here in this studio is, $1 million. And,
Right.
and then not that my investment's cheap here by any means, but, you don't need to spend the type of money I even spend because the cost has come down dramatically even since I made my investments. But,
Yep.
Rob, you're itching to say something here. I can see it.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that the big question is how does the big broadcasters of today kind of blend in with the webcasters of the future? And I think that's the most fascinating part of this whole thing is the big cable networks, the big TV networks, and their content machines that they have. How is what they're doing going to have to adapt to this new world? And then conversely, on the other side, the webcasters like us, I guess, and what you're doing and what a lot of online originating content providers are doing is going to blend in more into their world. And I think that at some point in about probably, I'm guessing between 3 and 5 years, you're going to have a hard time distinguishing between those two worlds. Now, granted that there's still going to be a long tail of content providers and content that's made on the web only that will not be considered to be kind of in that kind of upper tier of content. But I think it's really going to be interesting to see the Hollywood, right? The Hollywood side of this. I mean, you've got celebrities that are creating their own channels. You get like a Kevin Smith or Leo Laporte or those kind of fellows creating their own broadcast networks. And how is that world going to blend into the traditional broadcast world? And my thought is that what we're going to see happen is that the big broadcasters are going to have to really work on cutting down the costs of production to become more like webcasters. And webcasters are going to have to become more like the traditional broadcasters. And I think that at some point, these worlds are going to come together, and then it's just going to be all about content, right? It's not going to be about how it's distributed because it's all going to be distributed online at that point. So, the winners and losers are going to be based on who has the ability to create the best content that fits with the niche market that they're trying to reach with that content. And then it gets back to, well, what's the monetization model and how is it distributed? Who's paying for the bandwidth of this? And I think that's the other big pressure point that's really interesting too, is as a lot of these, cable companies and wireless phone providers are starting to tier our bandwidth. And, you saw as, like with the iPad, the new iPad, the screen resolutions are getting better and better, which means there's going to be more demand for us around bandwidth. And I think, you kind of look at all these things that are kind of converging, on each other, and you have to think, what is that going to look like 2 or 3 years from now? And what are we all going to be consuming?
I guess it was last week. I was up in Washington, D.C., and had some meetings in the D.C. area. And then I didn't publicize this too much, but I did a 1-day trip up to Philly, took the train up, and went and met with some people in Philly, and then flew back to Honolulu. And then I've had some progressing talks this past week. And I think what we're going to see is that the major media companies, whether it be radio, TV, I think they've already realized that they have to extend some olive branches. And I think you're going to see, Rob, here in the near future and maybe sooner than you think, where you're going to start seeing emerging of at least digitally, maybe not over the air, you'll see digitally emerging of some of our content into some more traditional networks. But it's it's not an easy thing at all. And there's definitely lots of, when you're talking with big companies, if, you're talking with two people that have a great idea and then their 5 lawyers are sitting behind them. It's discerning to have to deal with these big companies because everything that they have involves 152 pages of legalese and you shalls and shall not type of stuff. And that's where the challenge is going to be, and I'm hoping that we're going to be able to help be a gatekeeper for individuals and deal with the legalese and just be the help them get through that signing point. But I think it's going to happen sooner than you think. Now, the television side, we're already seeing here, at least in our area, there is one cable channel that has, I think some of Cali's stuff is on, and I think it's a Texas company they've got a broadcast channel. I can't think of the name of it, but the problem that I think they have, and I tune into that channel from time to time, is they definitely don't have enough breadth. They've got, they're playing four or five shows, and they're repeating every 4 hours, and that gets a little old if you're someone that is looking for fresh content all the time. But I think it's going to happen. You go back to the iPad. I was really worried on what this show was going to look like on the new iPad. So, last night I loaded up. First thing I did was load in my website, was looking at how the design looked, and I played my latest show, and I was just astounded. I was like, this thing looks amazing. And, I was originally thinking I was going to have to produce an HD version of the show, and I scaled let me show you this. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but I scaled up that's the video embed right there, a picture from the video embed. I scaled it up, and if it looks fantastic without, and that's 640 by 360 on this big new iPad display. I don't have to go to HD on this because, Apple's kind of done me a favor here with these higher pixel rates. I'm sitting here with my mouth drawn. It looks HD. It's fantastic. So, but if it didn't look like that, or and if Leo's stuff, obviously it looks fantastic, and so does Revision 3 and everyone else. I think everyone's got to get to that level, though. Yeah. From a quality perspective, but it's and I just was really I was worried about that big new screen size and how the content was going to look, and when I scaled it, it looks fine. So, but go ahead.
That's good news. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, but I don't think it stops from having to create the HD part too. You do 2 or 3 hour shows every week, and if you want it to look good, an hour in HD, and at least in 720p, you're talking close to 2 gigs, and then.
And that's where we get back to squeezing on the bandwidth again, right? And we're all getting capped on our bandwidth.
Well, not only that, but okay, so let's, I know what I pay my CDN. So let's say just hypothetically that it costs me 15 cents to deliver that file. All right, this show, we normally have Audible in as a sponsor, and they run every other show. So the next show will have them up as a, sponsor spot. And but this show, I'm running no ads in it, and largely I've not run a lot of ads in this show because I by choice. But you got to look at the cost effectiveness too. Does it make sense to cost me 15 cents to deliver it when the advertising won't pay the actual bandwidth bill? So. There's a whole bunch of, that's why these guys love YouTube. Can you imagine those YouTubers having to pay for 5 million impressions of their 8-minute video? That's not cheap to deliver in any sense. So,
yeah.
So that's why we need Microsoft with their billions of dollars to come on and host the media.
It always comes back to that.
Yeah, it does. It always comes back to getting it on the Xbox. Yeah.
Well, you guys obviously pay. You move your grandiose numbers of terabytes of data every month, so you get your data probably at about a penny or two a gig. So,
or less, Todd.
Or they own the pipes. Like Google owns the pipes, so they don't. They just pay to keep the lights on. Keep the fiber fired up, keep the plant running, electricity to the box.
Sorry, I just kicked over a big hard drive and.
Oh, that just makes you cringe, doesn't it?
Yeah. And the thing's alive in my hand. When you pick it up, it's vibrating. I'm sure it's fine.
Well, moving on to a different topic here. I don't know if you guys have followed the Light Squared deal, but Sprint basically said adios to Light Squared on Friday, and LightSquared is in big trouble. Lots of dollars at stake, probably bankruptcy afoot. And basically, LightSquared is basically now saying to the FCC, hey, you approved my ability to go and transmit in this band, and now you're telling me I can't because the GPS manufacturers' receivers are too far out of kilter that we're going to interfere with our GPS receiver. So you have to find us a new home. In other words, new place in the spectrum to do our business. And the FCC is, in some points, maybe obligated to do that because they're the ones that approve LightSquared to spend literally billions of dollars to put some satellites up. But there's some other folks from the GPS consortium that are basically saying that, hey, tough. LightSquared failed in their business plan, and you don't have any. You should basically tell them to, tough luck, Charlie. And I don't know if you guys are following this or not, but essentially what happened was, for those that are listening, when you have a GPS receiver, the receivers that are relatively inexpensive have a pretty wide bandwidth point from a reception standpoint, even though the GPS signal is pretty narrow. And what LightSquared tried to do is they tried to come in right beside that signal. And because the GPS receivers largely didn't have a filter, there was an interference issue. And LightSquared is basically saying that companies like Magellan and the companies that create, it's snowing in Seattle?
Show off.
Wow.
Sorry, Todd.
80 in Boston, snowing in Seattle. We're definitely got some.
It's the end of times.
It's global warming. So, have you guys followed this all on LightSquared? And what do you think about them telling the FCC, yeah, you got to give me some new frequency when there is none?
I thought that the agreement was provisional. My understanding was that they didn't get an okay. They got this sounds okay, but we need to test this kind of thing. And I think what they're saying is that the FCC kind of behind closed doors said, oh, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. And I think that's their fundamental issue. But, clearly they're suing to survive. I think that's what we're seeing.
I'm kind of laughing here. They're saying they can't just leave us without some alternative to build a network, said Jeff Carlisle, the company's EVP for regulatory affairs and public policy. Yes, they can.
Yeah, I think that's what they're going to discover.
Yeah, and someone else is going to buy those satellites and reuse them for something else.
Yep.
And hopefully the satellites are, have enough of they were smart enough to put the right type of receivers and transmitters in them so that they can change frequencies on them. But
I'm sure North Korea could use them for something.
Yeah, they want to put up their own, that's what they're.
Yeah, it's expensive.
Hey, Todd,
yeah.
did you see the story about the AT&T wireless user that took the AT&T company to a small claims court for shortcutting on his unlimited data plan, and he won. I think he won $850 or something like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm more power to him. But the question is, how many people that are going to take the time to file a small claims court claim?
Well, or more important, what does it take to turn that into a class action where they can just benefit implicitly by doing nothing and then assigning a piece of paper? Yeah.
Well, Paul, you know what they'll do? You'll sign up for a class action suit. It'll go on for 5 years, and then what you'll do is you'll get a bumper for your phone, or you'll get
yes,
or you'll get
what I need, right, for the phone that was 3 phones ago. By the time it's settled,
or you'll get 47 cents in the settlement because the lawyers have took everything but the last $1,000 or something. It's
yep.
Those class action. It's a real issue if you think about where we're headed. And I'm just thinking about this. This is a 4G LTE Verizon. They're allowing me to hotspot it, and of course they've got several bandwidth plans to support that hotspotting. But that's very rarely now when I'm away from the office that I am not without an iPad or an iPhone, and I probably use. I don't know where I'm at in a data usage standpoint. I know I'm above a gig, but below 2 per month. But it's going to be tough as they start running out of bandwidth. I think they got a big problem that they just don't quite know how to fix at this point.
I have an AT&T iPad 3 that doesn't have tethering yet, and I can't wait for them to have it, because the big benefit there, of course, is that you just pay for it when you need it.
Right.
And I think that's an amazing feature. I think probably like you guys, I've gone into a Best Buy or looked at this stuff online and thought about getting a MiFi type device, but you pay for that thing every single month, no matter what you use. And maybe that's the solution to this, bandwidth issue, because I think there's a small minority of people who are jumping way over the limits that they have, and then most of us are just nowhere near the limit, like you were saying, over a gig. I mean, I'm grandfathered in on an AT&T unlimited plan on my iPhone, but I mean, I don't think I've ever gone anywhere close to 2 gigabytes. I'm not even sure why I still pay for it.
And that was a story that was out earlier in the week too, is that like 47% of people don't use more than 300 megs a month, so they could probably afford to save some money by stepping down in the plan they have, going off of unlimited to the lower plan. But I'm a guy that travels a lot, and so I have a MiFi. I have a Verizon MiFi, and now that I'm looking at this iPad with hotspotting, I'm thinking,
this is a replacement.
Yeah. Because at the same time, I have a Sprint a Sprint stick that I traveled with me. But the largest reason I bought the MiFi is I'm going on the road, and I've got an iPhone. I have a couple of computers.
You want everything to use the one connection.
Right. So I'm thinking now the MiFi can go away, and we'll just have the iPad. If I have to pay for the higher data plan, so be it. But I'm still $30 ahead probably in the end per month.
Definitely per month. Yeah. No, I think that's what's amazing about it. So even in that rare instance where maybe you traveled a lot, you had multiple devices, you went over I don't know what it is on Verizon, but it's probably they probably 2 and 4 gig type plans or something.
Well, you can go all the way up to 10 gigs, but they pay
10 gigs. That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. So but you can pay for more as you go.
Yeah.
I think that's what's really neat about it. It's not, you don't get some block of data and then you just play overages. You can actually just buy another block of data if you really need it. And I think that's just such an awesome model.
And I'm loving it. And I just got to figure out how to turn on the hotspot. There's not a lot of information online on how to do it yet. I was looking last night. So someone's going to get 1 million hits on their blog when they post that how-to.
Yep.
Hey, the folks at PayPal are definitely going head-to-head here and competing with Square. And they've introduced PayPal here. And I hate to say it, but their little credit card reader is not that sexy. And I think all part of marketing is making something look sexy, but it's got this little triangle deal that they're going to use to plug into your phone. And I think this is huge. And they're actually coming in a little bit lower, like a decimal or 5 decimal points lower on percentage rates than what Square is. But this is definitely a big competitor for Square because PayPal has this huge established base, but I put my name in to get one of these devices because we can use them from time to time. What do you think about PayPal's announcement?
I just generally really have to say I'm not sure that an everyday user really has a lot of use for this kind of thing.
True.
I mean, it's not that difficult just to type in your credit card number into your phone, but I just wonder about this kind of near field communication thing, if that's really going to be what's transitional here, and that these card swipe technology things are just kind of like just a flash in the pan and a short term kind of thing.
I always laughed about it because my wife's Japanese, and everything in Japan's been near field communication for over 10 years, and you go there and everyone is the phone's going up at the 7-Eleven and at the McDonald's, and they're paying for everything with their phone. And, even though these swipers are, I believe you're right, Rob, they're an in-term solution. But, merchants, some merchant requirements are they want you to, swipe that card. And I think time will tell on how this all works out. But just as long as they don't tie my near field communication payments to my phone bill, I want it tied to.
I like that the PayPal one is triangular. By the way, I think that's a huge competitive advantage. But I think that these credit card swipe things are like the red box of payments, right? It's definitely an interim solution, Yeah, I think NFC or something like NFC is clearly the future of this stuff. I can't believe it took PayPal this long to get going on this. To be frank, I mean, they should have. I mean, they in many ways own kind of online payments for people who cannot normally accept credit cards. It's amazing they didn't think to do something like this.
Well, I still like the ability when I'm renting a phone in Japan to walk up to a beer machine that's on the street, put my phone up against the beer machine, and get a beer.
Oh, who wouldn't? That's a great feature. Talk about, waking up in the morning and being like, how many beers? What did I do? You just like fell asleep with your phone against the machine and 37 beers fell out of it or something.
Yeah. And it's amazing too that can you imagine a beer machine on the street in the United States? It would be there for about 20 minutes and some guy would pull up with a pickup truck and haul it away. Or the teenagers would be lined up, unloading it. But only in Japan.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So they're saying Lenovo is going to be first to market with a Windows 8 tablet, and maybe by a day, but I can't imagine that all the other tablet makers aren't going to be like boom, 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 out one after the other.
Oh yeah,
that's definitely sort of weakly sourced. that claim. I think there'll be plenty. I don't think it's going to be one.
Yeah, I think so too. But these guys over at The Verge, they're tearing it up. They're doing everything to get a lot of traffic. I see them on the leaderboard a lot more over at techmeme.com. I think the thing that comes with these guys writing articles like this is it's definitely something that they want to drive page views on. But I always laugh because they probably sourced that from someone else, and the guy that sourced that article and probably got 10 hits on his webpage. But
sure, and possibly invented the story. So I wouldn't take too much stock in that.
But I have to say, the whole thing around the rise of The Verge is just phenomenal when you think about it. I mean, those guys came from the Engadget blog, and basically, I mean, nobody talks about Engadget anymore. It's all The Verge now, and it's like it's really been fascinating to watch this transition that's happened. That talent that left Engadget over to The Verge and has created this media empire in such a short period of time. It's crazy.
One thing's for sure I'll say about those guys, they hooked up with the guys from SB Nation, and, the SB Nation guys, we'd had a very difficult time monetizing sports shows. And, I think what it took guys that knew the sports industry to monetize that. So if you look what they've done with the sports side, and now they're going to be, they're launching this tech blog. And I don't know if they're going to launch multiple tech blogs, but if they're just going to do this one, they are going to be a force to reckon with for a very long time. And SB Nation, I just can't imagine SB Nation not being bought by someone at some point, ESPN or someone like that coming in and trying to buy that up. But it looks like they're just doing amazing. Well, I know that they're doing amazing numbers.
Sure.
Well, and they're doing amazing work too. I think that's the thing. They're definitely earning that traffic, no question. Those guys are working hard.
Yeah, I agree. So I kind of hinted on it earlier in the show, but I talked about Apple TV, wishing that there was apps in it, and we missed, of course, show last week, Rob, and I wanted to talk about this last week, but I think they missed the mark and not releasing apps. Are they going to save apps to the true Apple TV release in this fall when we're going to be able to go to the Apple Store and stand in line for a 60-inch TV?
Well, Todd, I think they do have apps in it, but it's just the big media companies, and they do have a podcast app. I popped into a Best Buy the other day and checked it out. It's actually a pretty good experience in there. So I'm fairly impressed with what they've done with podcasting in there. It's not being monetized, and there's no, it's still kind of a half-hearted effort in reality. But I was glad to see that podcasts were actually included in the Apple TV in a fairly significant way.
It's been in there from the beginning. That menu item has. But you take my Roku 430 available channels. I can go in and pick apps from a variety of different sources, variety of different content points. And what do I have on the Apple TV? Maybe 9 different things.
Yeah.
You've got YouTube, you've got Netflix, Amazon's not in there, Hulu's not in there. There's just a whole wide range of content that's not there. Whereas
you have to know it's coming, though.
You
have. Yeah. In the same way that they released the iPhone, probably knowing that they were going to have to open this thing up. And you're probably right too that it will be tied to the actual television that they're eventually going to release. But the new device, I don't know if there's been any teardowns, but it has to be slightly more powerful to handle 1080p. I would imagine that's part of just setting up the platform for that capability.
Well, it can't happen soon enough. I had my programming team. I was like, all right, be ready. Priorities are probably going to change. And, it's this non-event. I'm like, go back to work, continue with what you were working on, For me, it's, I'm all about the distribution point. And what we've seen is this, and I have no doubt that it's going to be hugely successful when they turn it on. I publicly stated I'll be one of those guys that will pre-order or stand in line to get a television when it's out. My wife fully knows that's a credit card bill that'll come due immediately following the ordering of it.
You know what the funniest thing about that is? People line up for these events, right? Lines around the block for an iPad or for an iPhone. How are people going to carry a television out of an Apple store? Can you imagine just the logistics of that, right? The drive-bys that are going to happen when people get mugged on the way out and someone rides away in a pickup truck with some ginormous Apple box. It's kind of a weird dynamic. I'm curious to see how that stuff goes.
And I'm just wondering if you're actually going to be able to buy one in the store. You're probably going to go be able to look at one and touch one, but I can't imagine they're going to be selling them out of the retail store.
Well, plus, $300 in shipping to get to your house. I mean, I'm curious to see how that goes, but
yeah, that's true.
I guess if anyone can do it.
Well, you know what they're going to do? They're going to tack another $300 on the price of it, and they'll pay for shipping. So you don't worry, you'll get free shipping on that device.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right, moving on here. Let's look at the time. Yeah, we're doing okay on time. A lot of folks are asking me why I bought the Verizon iPad, and I was looking at some comparisons. Obviously, they're way ahead of AT&T. Now, you said do you have the 4G, the true 4G LTE network there in Boston, Paul?
So I live outside of Boston, and I was very curious. In fact, I paid for data just to see if I would get it, and I don't. I live in a black hole when it comes to reception, so I'll take it around and see if I can get it somewhere in Boston. But the reason I went with AT&T is I go travel internationally a lot, and AT&T has fantastic international data plans and also calling and text plans. My wife has a Verizon phone, and it's it's not quite as good on the Verizon end. And I do want the tethering badly, but I know they're going to add it eventually. So I foresee a time, this summer we'll go to Europe, and I can use this thing as both an international data source over cellular, and then a hotspot as well. And I hope it happens by the summer. It's AT&T. I guess we'll see. But I've just had good luck with that stuff on AT&T, which is why I went with that version.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I traveled to Asia from time to time, and generally what we do there is we just rent phones. It's even cheaper than adding an international plan, and I just call forward my phone to that international number, which is kind of a weird way of doing it. But yeah, that is true though. I didn't think about that. Maybe I'll come to regret it, or I'll end up paying Verizon.
Well, you should look at Verizon, because I know they have it on phones. They must have it on those iPad data sharing plans as well.
They're also saying that you can put an AT&T SIM in the Verizon iPad too, and it'll work. But it won't be on LTE; it'll be on 3G, which is probably just fine anyway. That's most of the networks running overseas.
That's all you're going to get in Europe anyway, so it's fine.
So let me pose a question, you guys. Why do you guys go with a 4G plan on an iPad when you can get? Well, I guess you guys can't get 4G on the iPhone yet, can you?
No,
I can't remember. No. So
well, actually, they changed in the software now. It will say 4G. So we actually, Rob, we got an upgrade. We do have 4G. So, no, but we don't. Right, we don't have. I actually use a Windows phone.
Yeah, it says, Rob, it says 4G on it, but it's okay. You know what it's not really.
But it's HSPA or whatever. If you're on AT&T, it's not LTE.
So you know where I'm going with this is that why do you guys get the LTE iPad when you can get pretty much the same data stream through your phone and just use that as a hotspot? Is there a particular advantage?
Well, because that's expensive and you have to pay for it every single month. In other words, the benefit of the iPad is that you can pay as you go. So if I don't travel this month, I don't pay for it, I don't use it, it's fine.
Gotcha.
And with AT&T, I think you got to pay $15 for the hotspot, don't you? Isn't there?
Yeah,
an additional charge?
It might even be 20. I mean, and then you have, and by the way, if I were to do that, I'm grandfathered in on that iPhone unlimited data. If you add tethering to the phone, you no longer have unlimited data. So you'd also have to give that up. Not that I use it, but that's a little bit of a concern.
Makes sense.
And another thing too, Rob, is when you buy the new iPad, you have no choice. That's the data plan you're offered. So
right. It's not like 3G data plan would have been cheaper. This is the one. This is it, cellular or not.
Right.
Yep.
So Amazon has signed a deal, and they brought 3,000 more titles to Amazon Instant Video. And I have not been using Amazon as a Netflix replacement for a while, but my kids have been on. We do spring break here, weird in Hawaii. Spring break has been going on this week, so my kids have been tearing up Netflix, and my wife has been home too. And my wife is telling me last night, let's cancel Netflix. There's nothing on there. This is ridiculous. So I loaded Amazon up in my Google TV and paid for the Prime, the $99 or whatever it was, paid for Prime. And I'm pretty honest with you here. Netflix has got to step up their game. Amazon has definitely done. They got a pretty significant library now, and lots of titles I'm not seeing on Netflix. I'm seeing on Amazon. So they just added 3,000 more titles by bringing on Discovery. I don't know. I think Netflix is slipping a little bit here.
I think Netflix has obviously been doing it a little longer, and the one big advantage they have maybe is device accessibility.
Oh, yeah.
You can get Netflix on an iPad. You cannot get the Amazon stuff on an iPad.
True.
You can get same thing on the Apple TV. So depending on the device you have, or how you're doing it, you may not have access to Amazon. So that alone just sort of negates that. Perhaps. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't too long ago that the Amazon service was a vast wasteland of nothing. I mean, it was really bad. And I think with this most recent announcement, the one you're talking about, they finally, I think this is the time when it's finally, that plus Netflix lost the Starz content just a week ago or so. I think maybe that was the tipping point where these things are almost right there, compared to each other.
And it's true, though, that, if you looked at the Netflix offering, and there isn't a device that they're not on that I have ever seen, at least. I think they so I saw somewhere they're on over 1,000, and I didn't know there's over 1,000 different Android models out there. That kind of shocked me in itself, but they said they were on 1,000 Android models alone. So, but we'll see. What were you saying, Rob?
I say that's just a crazy number of phones when you think about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it really speaks to how they've really kind of carpet bombed the phone industry with Android phones, haven't they?
They have, and it's very evident when you go into a mobile store. You're looking at the phones, and it's heavily dominated by Android.
Yeah, that's all you see when you walk in, and you probably see maybe one or two phones on display off to the side that are Windows phones, and maybe a couple phones that are the iPhones. But it's pretty much the dominant.
I'm
thing
sure.
that you see
I know this isn't the topic du jour, but I have never understood the popularity of Android. I don't get it. I understand why companies might want to sell them because they're less expensive, right? But the phones themselves, I've tried. I've really tried. I just don't get it. I don't understand why. And my wife uses an Android phone. I'm not going to divorce her because of this, but it is an area of contention. Certainly, I don't understand it.
Well, it's the new war. It's the new geek war. It's definitely from a. And I got a buddy of mine that uses Android, and he's as religious about its usage as some Mac users are, and using Mac devices. And I'm not necessarily calling myself a fanboy just because I use an iPhone, but there are some folks that wouldn't use anything else. And I had to tease a buddy of mine because I saw him the other day. He still had one of these Motorola flips. I was like, dude, how old's that phone? He says, don't even start. He says.
The 90s are calling. They want your phone back.
And I said, when you get into the real world? And he says, what pisses me off, he says, is I don't want a smartphone. He says, I've got a tablet. I use my tablet. I use my phone as a phone. And he says, it's hard to find a generic phone. And he actually works in the defense industry. So he has to have a phone that doesn't have a camera on it. So he's got to the point where he can't find a phone without a camera on it now. So what they're doing is they're painting. They're using nail polish to paint over the camera so that they can take their phones into these spaces that are not allowed to have cameras per se on the phone. So, whatever thought that we had to put.
And whatever it's worth, that flip phone he has probably works. Which is an experience that if we were being honest with ourselves, that a few smartphones work very well as phones.
Well,
there are a lot of general everyday people out there that don't have the technical ability or the willingness to go through the hassle, and I think it is truly perceived as a hassle to learn how to use one of these advanced smartphones too. I mean, I think there's always going to be a segment of the population that's not going to make this jump, and that's just the way it is.
Well, and it's talking about the phones actually working. I spend at least 2 hours a day in my car taking my kids to school, picking them up, and Honolulu traffic is nightmarish at times. And I know, I do a lot of business calls while I'm mobile. As a matter of fact, I purposely schedule business calls, but I get on the highway and I say, okay, I need to talk to this guy for 10 minutes. Can't call him until I get past point A because I know I'm going to drop a connection there. So, I'm planning business calls around where I'm going to be driving and traffic conditions to know if I'm actually going to get dropped from one tower to the next. It's pretty sad. But if someone ever figures out how to make a phone actually transition to a different tower and not drop a call, they'll win my business forever.
Todd, that's just too much to ask. I mean,
it's true. All right, a hallmark of book publishing has passed the torch and said, we're done. After 244 years, Encyclopedia Britannica is going out of print. Quite honestly, I thought they'd already been out of print.
Still around, yeah. That was my reaction too. They still make these things?
Yeah, it's like
that's, by the way, that's the book version of what we were talking about earlier, where independent versions of that thing, which are cheaper and more open to the public, become the new way of doing it. The notion that someone used to walk around in your neighborhood and try to sell you these things and then deliver 150 pounds of book, paper and whatever to your home is ludicrous. But that used to be a status symbol, having a set of the Britannica Encyclopedia. So, yeah, I mean, that's there it is. That's happening in a different market.
Go ahead, Rob.
The regular white pages or yellow pages phone books too. I mean,
right.
I mean, if about it, kind of in the same vein, if you were to show a yellow pages to a teenager, they probably wouldn't even know what it is.
I think we use ours for a doorstop. I think they come. I don't know. They get used around here for weird things, for propping up stuff, and they still deliver them, and people still get paid to deliver.
It could be used as a weapon. It could be used to light a fire. Yeah, basically everything but whatever its original purpose was.
Right.
We just wonder how long that business is going to be around too. And even going back to the encyclopedia stuff, I actually asked my kids. I'm like, they're doing research and they're getting online, and of course, probably using Wikipedia more than they should. But I'm like, what do you know about encyclopedias? And quite literally, my 15-year-old daughter, she kind of was like, what? What's that? And literally, she didn't know. And so I went to their website and I showed her, and I was like, "Oh, this is." She actually thought it was a cool online resource, but she didn't think it. She thought it was completely stupid that people would actually have all these books on their shelves. So it's a whole generation is growing up without them, as should be.
Yeah.
All right, last couple of articles.
Good and bad. Good and bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last couple of articles here. Azure, to boost Windows Azure, they're saying that Microsoft's launching the company's first ever direct startup accelerator. So, what's the story on this, Paul? Have you got the skinny on what they're doing here?
Actually, no, I do not. Windows Azure, I think there's a stumbling block with this service. I mean, the second you run into it, I have, as someone who follows Microsoft very closely, I have a hard time conceptually with this product. And it literally, I remember the event, I think it was at TechEd, where they announced it, and they had a special event for the press afterwards where they said, look, this is going to answer all of your questions. And after 90 more minutes of this, I walked out in a complete daze, and someone said, so you're all set? And I said, I have no idea what this product is. I don't get it. And I understand that it's an operating system in the cloud. It's a platform in the cloud and so forth. I think the problem for them is that they've seen very slow uptick on it. It's actually one of the rare Microsoft cloud services that hasn't just taken off in a dramatic way very quickly. I mean, honestly, across the board, they're doing very well. So, Azure has the platform and the web platform. It's got a SQL Server or database platform and so forth. And I think the accelerator you're talking about is an attempt to get third-party startups to get onto this platform and not be using the data platforms or the computing platforms that are offered by competitors like Amazon and so forth. So I think this is, I just think it's an attempt to, just make something that's not exciting a little more exciting.
Well, and let me add to that a little bit too. Really, that platform is really trying to do multiple things. It's going to be the services kind of foundation for a lot of the Microsoft online services, as well as they want to build a business that encourages startups to, just like what Paul was saying, come in and build applications in the cloud, and to also look at that platform as a hosting platform as well. And that message is kind of a difficult one to communicate simply because like Paul was saying, it's a very complex service that is kind of cloud-based, and it's very business-centric. It's not a consumer kind of thing. But I think it is very, very foundational to the direction, kind of the long-term direction of where the overall Microsoft services is going.
I was invited to by a company out of Texas that does basically blogger outreach and stuff. They invited me to basically get a free account and set up some website, or basically I got pitched this thing that at the time I was like, what are you guys talking about? And they signed some company to me that was running this service, and it was like 6 months before I actually got a login to log into this thing and check it out. And I consider myself pretty tech savvy. We've got servers that run on EC2. I've got Linux boxes over on GoDaddy and a variety of different places. And I logged into this service, and I was just like, oh my God, forget it. I'm done. I'm out of here, because it just was. It was not at all, in my opinion, was not at all user friendly, and it took me a long time to figure out what the heck they were even trying to have me test. So I don't know. I think that they've got a long road to hoe on this thing to get it to the point where a non-technical, super geeky company can actually use this thing.
Yeah. Even if you are very technical and forward-leaning, honestly, the hardest part about it is the pricing structure. And I'm not suggesting that it's too expensive. I'm just suggesting that it's completely opaque. You have no idea how much it's going to cost until you kind of do it.
That's true.
It's a strange model. And I remember when they launched it, and one of the big deals right up front was there was X amount of time where you could use it for free, but then they would show you what the bill was going to be based on your usage, kind of a pay-as-you-go type of thing. I think it's just a thing. It's clearly the wave of the future. I mean, we're going to laugh someday that people install things locally and, have their own servers and all that stuff. It will seem as antiquated as a paper-based encyclopedia, really. But, this is early days, I think, for this kind of thing. And it's just a I think it's just a big unknown.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, what's in store for your site? Where are you guys headed? What you guys doing these days?
Yeah, right now it's all Windows 8 and to a lesser extent now Office 15 as well. I was kind of hoping to put off the Office stuff, but that's starting to crank up as well. So I'm writing a book about Windows 8. So Windows 8 is very, very, very much on my mind and something I think about and write about every day and sort of living in it. So that's, 2012 is pretty much those two products right there.
I after writing the my book on podcasting in 2005, I'll leave the writing books to someone else. That was a fun one-time deal. Unless someone comes.
It was fun, really?
Yeah, it was. It was early days, and I was excited about the topic, but yeah, you really got to love something to be able to write tech books. They are.
I would put it slightly differently. You have to be horribly broken to write books about anything, and you have to really kind of hate yourself and have no self-respect. There's really no financial gain to be had. There's something to be said for publishing on the web where you can make a fix right away, and it's you can right a wrong, but when you put something into a book, even today, it's very, very difficult to make a change, and it's not really, I wouldn't call it fun personally, but here I am doing it again like an idiot. So that says a lot about me, I'm sure.
I wrote mine with Wiley the first go around, and they came back to me like 2 years later, and they were like, I had known what the numbers were for the first book, and it did very well. They did very well on that book, and I got paid. I can't complain with the amount of money I got paid. I got paid decently and did some good royalty payments. But when they came back and said, we want you to do number 2, and they talked to me about the topic of it, I was like, oh no, you're asking me to open up my little black book and tell all my secrets, and then, that's going to impact my business, and you're going to have to pay, and I rolled the number out there, and they just kind of like laughed at me. But that would be probably the only way I would write another book at this point, is if someone came with a check with a number of zeros on it that made it worthwhile up front. But yeah, I don't.
My check has lots of zeros in it, but unfortunately, there are no other numbers. It really is not a lucrative business.
Yeah. So Paul, do you see yourself writing books in the future, or are they all going to be kind of online kind of books now?
I think we're heading to a future where the book business changes a lot, obviously, and I know that's happening right now. But I always say I'm never going to do this again. I would almost prefer to write something on an ongoing basis and have it be collected as a sort of an ebook that people could bundle together and buy maybe. And I don't know. I make a lot more money with my website. I would never figure out what I make per hour writing a book because I'm in the hole so deeply. It would just be humiliating and horrible. Every time, I would say any amount of time I spend writing a book is just time wasted. I'm not really clear why I do it, but.
Well, I think I understand why you do it, though. You have to keep it's about reinventing yourself and keeping yourself current and viable. And even though you have a website, it's an additional peg on the sheet, right?
I guess so. After I've written so many books, the book market has gone downhill dramatically, obviously, over the years. So it's hard to say. It's hard to say. I guess I would just say to people that, in my case, at least, you can tell I love this stuff because I'm not getting paid a hell of a lot to do it. So, I'm clearly interested in the product. I wouldn't write a book about just anything, obviously. But yeah, it's sure. It's a little element of my resume, I guess, such as it is. But yeah, financially, I'd love for a book to take off in a meaningful way. It's been a long time since one has. And I think that's just a factor of how people find out information about the things that I write about. It's changed.
So I would think it also kind of is a reason for you to dive in and learn every little aspect of what's going on with Windows 8 too, and it makes you truly an expert too.
That's true. And actually, one of the big disappointments maybe of writing books was that, growing up, I would look at a computer book or some technical book and think, wow, this guy's really an expert. And one of the things I've come to learn is that writing the book is what forces you to learn those things, and that you become an expert in some ways, yes, during the process of it. I've certainly learned a lot about Windows 8 by having to dive more deeply into it ruin machines and have to connect bootloaders and get things working again and all that stuff, and reinstalling. I mean, it's interesting. At least I'm interested in it. It's certainly less glamorous than maybe most people would like, but yeah.
I think the thing from my experience is it was all cool until, this project I had worked on it was like top secret. They're like, do not tell anybody, because we want to be first on the street. And I had gotten a phone call one Sunday morning, and it was basically some guy on the East Coast wanted to interview me for his podcasting book. And so, I am in the midst of, I'm 70 days into a 120-day write. And, this guy is on the phone. He's asking me all these questions, and I'm being forthright with him and answering. So I'm at the same time, well, when's your book coming out? And congratulations. I'm pumping this guy's ego as much as I could. And little did he know, he's feeding me the intel on what their publishing schedule is. And their publishing schedule was a little more aggressive than ours was. And so I got off the phone and immediately, basically called my publisher on a Sunday and said, hey, we got a problem. And he, that was probably a phone call I wish I would have never gotten, because then they were like, okay, you have to be finished in 2 weeks.
Nice.
And, I think I had maybe, that's probably 2/3 of the way through. And so I just basically had no life for 2 weeks. It was, 18-hour days. And I'm sure that
I've done this. Yep.
And cranked it out. And I laugh now because the guy that was writing it's a good friend of mine. And so he says, why did I call you on that Sunday? You were first. I'm like, well, that was a difference between 85,000 copies being sold and your 25,000. So,
yeah.
So it was, it was worth it, but it was kind of an interesting time for me, at least. Well, guys, Rob, what's happening on your side? Anything new? Any rumors you can tell us without getting yourself in trouble?
I can't think of any right now. I think it's just full steam ahead with working on stuff. Keeping the lights on in the podcast area and out there always looking for new podcasters and new content. Which at times it kind of ebbs and flows. There's stretches of time when there isn't a lot of new content that comes on in the podcast area. It's a little slower on that front than it has been in the past in some ways. So I think just kind of speaking frankly here, it seems like a lot of stuff is going into YouTube these days.
Yeah.
But it I'm still hoping that the podcast area will continue to grow and prosper. It seems like it certainly got a lot of buzz down at South by Southwest this past week and a half or so around comedy podcasters. They seem to kind of rule the show down there quite a bit, which was a real positive kind of thing. So
one thing I will say, Rob, is we've seen an influx. We kind of track our growth rate based on the number of content creators basically adding themselves to our ecosystem. And between about January 15th and probably within the last week, we've seen about a good influx of at least 500 new content creators, and we've never gotten 500 in 6 or 7 weeks. So I don't know if people just newly found us, but it looks like a lot of new shows. But 75% of those will be gone in 6 months anyway. So it's the ones that can hang on for the long term is the challenge.
Yeah. So if you're watching this and you're a podcaster and you want to get your audio or video podcast on the kind of the podcast marketplace for Windows Phone and Zune and Windows Media Center, send me an email, with your RSS feed, and I'd be happy to add it to the platform. And I can be contacted at rob@zune.net. That's rob@zune.net. So, and I can also be found on Twitter at Rob Greenlee. So look me up if you're a content provider. I'd love to get your show on our platform.
Well, guys, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule here. We're right hour 23, which is probably about 10 minutes longer than I should have run this thing today. But Paul, thanks for coming out and being on the show. I definitely appreciate it. And of course,
absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And they can find you at winsupersite.com. And what's your Twitter handle?
Unfortunately, it's my last name, which is hard to spell, but it's at Thurrott, which is THURROTT.
And that's what I did have to look at when Rob sent the email over. I was like, I said,
Yeah.
2 R's. And
that I had been born a white, or a car or some simple, 4-letter last name.
Well, you can just imagine how they spell my last name. I've heard it spelled every way in the book. COCK, COCCAINE. It's either cocaine or it's they say they've destroyed my name. So no need. Yep. Yeah, you've got a great name. I
guess, yeah, an entertaining name at least.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, thanks. And this wraps it up, folks. For those of you that are watching live, if you missed part of this show, we'll go into instant replay. For those of you that, obviously, I should have said this in the beginning. You can check this show out on Google TV, of course, on your Roku, your Boxee, Samsung Smart TV, on our Tech Podcast channel over there at techpodcast.com. Check out all our family safe shows. 100 plus family safe shows where you don't have to worry about someone cussing at you during the watching the content. But it's been my pleasure bringing this. We'll see you next Saturday. I will be here in Honolulu next week, so we'll have another Saturday morning tech. Same time, same place next time. Everyone take care. And aloha.